If you look back in the other videos, you'll remember that we travelled up the west coast of Scotland by car to get to Fort William, where we did the Glenfinnan viaduct railway to Mallaig, and discovered Neptune's staircase, and we discovered the Caledonian Canal, which was a surprise to us. After all of this, we decided that we would go down and try and find a spot on the banks, maybe a hotel or something on Loch Lomond, and then use that as our base to go back and forth to Glasgow. We drove down here through amazingly heavy traffic and hikers and things. It was a holiday, I think, or a weekend day perhaps. This was a very busy trip down here. Eventually we got to Loch Lomond and we looked around and it just didn't look right. It just didn't look right. So we then, on the spur of the moment, decided to press on to Dumbarton. Not knowing anything about Dumbarton, we arrived there. We booked ourselves into what was called the Dumbarton Motel, and this proved to be the most amazing, once again, the most amazing gift, because we had no idea what to expect, and we used Dumbarton as our base to go back and forth to Glasgow. We didn't actually stay in Glasgow for a couple of days, but based ourselves there. And while in Dumbarton, we discovered, for example, the Denny ship testing tank, which I'll show you in the video. And I was always wanting to see remnants of the shipbuilding industry along Clydebank, and I found that there was a place in Dumbarton on the banks of the Clyde, quite near the castle, which was a major shipbuilding area, which is now no longer there. And so in the next video I'll show you our experiences in Glasgow, but this little video is about Dumbarton on the banks of the River Clyde, and it's two attractions that we discovered not knowing anything about it before we arrived there. This is Dumbarton Castle. Apparently that is a basalt plug that popped itself up within the region, and then the locals, well, in those days, somebody decided it would be a fine fortress. So it looks like on the left there you can go up onto the top. It's closed at the moment because today is Saturday night, but have a look at the prospect from there down the Clyde estuary. This is late afternoon on Saturday the 8th. There's the Clyde estuary there with this huge mudflats. And encouragingly, there's some signs of life here. There's some birds in the mud here, and I've just seen an oyster catcher dabbling around. The European oyster catcher seems to be a smaller bird than the one we have in Australia. There it is there. I've gone ahead. I'm climbing the stairs in Dumbarton Castle, and it's built on, well, basalt or dolerite intrusion in Dumbarton, sort of popped into the local rocks, and I'm on this fairly long, hence the breathlessness, stairway, which I've come up from there. I'm near the top on Dumbarton Castle, on this rock in Dumbarton, and this is the River Clyde stretching out here. I can't go all the way because of the sun on the water, would be blinding, but to give you an idea, I will blind you. All the way down there towards the mouth on that side there. Once again, I'm up on the top of the Dumbarton Castle rock, and that's looking down over the River Leven, which joins the River Clyde, which is behind me. This is Dumbarton in the days of shipbuilding, and you can see there's the castle and all of the ships, the slipways and things along here, and then all the engineering works and things back there, and that's all gone with the modern houses along here now, and there's a football field here. There you have Dumbarton laid out in front of you. It's actually a very nice little city, only 20,000 odd people, and right on the banks of the River Clyde, and that's Glascow right up there. So it's quite a walk up here, and you can see down across there a little walkway up to a slightly lower patch with cannons and whatnot on it over there. So there was this little chasm in the rock, really, which has been used. I guess they built this up, and there's this sort of a guardhouse ahead. You can see it has a view out back over the hills. I'm on a slightly lower level now. You can see the wall with the loopholes through it, and then a little guardhouse accommodation, I guess, and then going up to a higher part of the rock. This is the magazine. It's right on a very high point, and around it is built a wall which will receive most of the explosion if things went up in the magazine building, which is the central building here. Now I see there's a lot of graffiti on the walls and so on, but I'll take you in anyway. Hello. Here we go, here. Oh, I see, and this is where all the powder is kept, or was kept, in this building here. It's not graffiti, it's an image of two men carrying a powder keg with a circular vaulted ceiling. So if things went up here, basically you had an external wall to protect, and then being right on top of the hill with the other buildings below, it would have blown away rather than blown in your face, as it were. We're at the Denny experimental tank, and there's a little video here which shows you the process of making a wax scale model of a design for a ship, and then they make these cross sections using these boards to mold a clay base. So they then cut the clay, as you can see, and then they put a frame in. They make a frame which is a replica of a cross-section of the ship. Looks like they cover it with cloth bed. No, I don't think it's wax. And that then is the mould for the ship. Pouring wax into the clay mould, they then take out it's paraffin wax, the paraffin wax model of the hull. So there's the wax model, and they make it, they're so precise, you know, everything is exactly the same as their design. And they handwork it until the hull is exactly proportionate to their designs. The whole inside has a layer of glass fibre on it, so the outside is wax. And there's the model of the ship. Now they're doing the superstructure, aren't they? Even to the extent of actually having a propeller and a rudder on the wax model. There's the rudder going in now. They had to make models of the rudders and the actual propellers that were proposed for the ships. So here's some of the examples of them, ones that they made to go onto their model to test out its performance. Looking out of the window into the back garden of the experimental tank at Denny Brothers, there's some old wax models discarded outside. You can see the long experimental tank underneath a covered roof, obviously with skylights. So that's where the long canal and the models would be drawn along that canal to see their performance in water, the wax models. And this is where all of the detailed tracing of the forms of the models, you know, the shape of the hulls would have been done with, you know, they've got, this is an exhibition obviously, but they've got all kinds of instruments which they would have used for creating those forms, which could then be transformed into wax models downstairs. And they've got some beautiful, like this is the Cutty Sark, it's a model of the Cutty Sark, a famous one. And over here is a paddle steamer, a PS Fure. So the information about each hull and its performance was saved in these things, they call them deacon boxes. And so you can see all of the information saved from the testing in the Denny model tank stored in these. So this is where the model was made. That's a clay mould. So the clay had to be shaped very carefully according to those forms. You can see the Vulcan 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a ship. And that's the outline of the hull going from back to front. And then a frame is made and covered with cloth. And then that goes into the clay, and then paraffin wax, molten paraffin wax is poured in to the mold with the wooden frame in it. And from there it can be hauled out and shaped on these tables and things, very meticulously shaped. And then eventually the final model is hauled out on these gantries here and then moved across down to the tank. And these are wax, paraffin wax models. This one is in the process of being shaped, and you can see what they do is they have to shave down these ridges until it's smooth. You can see that it's smooth up that end. And here's another one here, and it's wax, it's candle wax. You can actually scratch it, which is a naughty thing to do. So this is the Denny wave tank, which is a long canal basically, stretching down right down to the end there. It's 100 yards long, and right at the other end was a wave generating machine. That's a dummy down there. It's a wave generator. It initially was operated by hand, but eventually became a mechanical thing. And then you can see the paraffin model of the ship that was being tested, a very accurate model, is suspended in the water below this thing that travels along, and with a set of instruments on the top measuring the performance of the hull, with dynamometers and things like that measuring resistance and so on, and flow over the hull.